Hello friends, welcome into another video. I'm Das Food, and easily out of all the videos I've made, this is one of the most exciting, and it's for many reasons. One is because I'm genuinely excited about the concept of it, but the other is because this was kind of a community-made video. I put out a post, I said, hey, if you have hot takes, let me have them. And despite the relatively small size of my channel, I was blown away that at the time of recording this, there are over 120 comments on that, which may not sound like a lot, but I was terrified that I was going to put this post out and get like 5 replies, which I would have appreciated. But I mean, if I would have appreciated 5, you can only imagine how I'm feeling about 120 plus. So first off, thank you guys. This lets me know we can do more videos like this in the future, and it also makes this into a more enjoyable video in and of itself. But what is the topic of this video? It is hot takes. I asked you for your hot takes, and they could be anything about any aspect of Dead by Daylight, and boy oh boy, you guys delivered. There are some genuinely fun ones in here. But there is one thing I want to mention before we go any further, and that is, look guys, we are all in the same community here. We play the same game, and the odds are, if you're watching this, you probably sub to the same channel that these other people do, and I asked them for hot takes. That means they're going out on a limb and saying things that maybe are kind of bold and kind of controversial. That's what we're looking for. So please, don't be mean to anybody in this comment, not in this comment, anybody that left a comment. I will go through them, and if I disagree, I disagree. But firstly, to those that left comments, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And if I disagree with what you say, I still value your input, and we just don't see eye to eye. This is in no way a personal attack, and any kind of ribs that I throw out there should be taken playfully, because that's just kind of my sense of humor. So, all of that out of the way, we have a lot to cover. We're not going to cover all of them. I should have said that. We're not going to cover absolutely everyone in here because some of them I didn't fully understand what was being said, and some of them I just didn't think would really work with the video. So if you submitted a comment and it's not in here, I do apologize. It's not personal, and hopefully if I do another one like this, your comment gets in here. But let's get this going. We have over 100 to get to, and I don't want this to be an hour-long video. So sit back, put this on 2x speed, and enjoy. Let's go. Firstly, we had a lot of comments about the balance of the game, all kinds of different aspects. So let's start with Amy the Cool, who says, alright, I have 2, one big one, one small one, the small one being Medal of Man should only have 2 stacks. And the big one is, as much as people argue about it, I think that in a weird way, this game is balanced. If both sides are using all the most busted builds, I think killers and survivors have an equal chance of winning. As far as the Medal of Man part of this, I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. It's a perk that we've seen what it looks like busted, and we've seen what it looks like useless. So I kind of like it where it is, where it's in this role of being not super great, but still has its uses. I'm very hesitant to ever touch that perk ever again, because for a while there, it was the bane of every killer's existence. As for the second one, the big one, what you're talking about here is a general rule of balance that you'll see some games implement, where instead of focusing on bringing everything down to each other's level, they make everything as busted as they can, because much like Syndrome says in The Incredibles, you know, where if everyone's super, no one is, that kind of applies. So in a certain way, yes. However, I don't think that that takes into account enough of the sample size of what playing the game actually looks like. It's always going to feel bad to go up against a pinky finger clown, or a team of, you know, a four stack of Survive with Friends where they have nothing but second chance perks, right? That's always going to feel bad. So I think there is some truth to what you're saying, but I don't think it's much consolation to those who, you know, maybe it's not going so well. And I'm sorry if you hear me clicking my my thing in the background there. Maybe you heard it, maybe you didn't, but I'm going through these to make sure I don't like paraphrase anybody too much and that I actually get the original intent here. So overall, Amy, I generally agree with your hot takes. Moving on to Bye, B-Y-E, Bye says, DBD is poorly designed at its core. It feels like a gimmick game, a proof of concept, a struggling studio pushed out rather than a competent game. I'm not talking coding, that's obviously a jumbled bad mess. I'm talking gameplay loop. DBD is designed to be unfun. Your very goal as a survivor is to waste the killer's time and frustrate them so your teammates can complete boring, meaningless goals that require no thought or skill. As a killer, your goal is to stop survivors playing the game for as long as possible until you win. No other game is designed like this. No other game has this incompetent, such a boring and frustrating gameplay loop that is designed to make both sides hate each other. It's baffling. And only on our second hot take of the video, and I'm already going to have to strongly disagree with one. And again, I do want to give Bai credit here for offering a genuinely spicy hot take here. However, at risk of getting called some kind of DBD shill or whatever it is that I get every time I'm positive about the game, I'm just going to come in and say, no, I think this is just patently untrue. I think that the cat and mouse formula is inherently fun, and while you're going to get no argument from me that would say, you know, oh no, sitting on a generator is super fun, and you know, it takes so much skill and so much thought. I'll agree with that. Skill checks, you know, that's a bit of an oxymoron. However, I do think that the looping aspect of the game is incredibly fun, and I like the way it's kind of a tag in, tag out system for the survivors. You get chased, you either get hooked or you get away, and then it's your buddy's turn, and I think that's kind of fun. So no, I really don't see it this way. I'm sorry that you dislike the game, but I don't think it's designed to be unfun. I just think it's that certain games are unfun to certain people. So for example, I've gone to where I really don't like open world games anymore. I used to be crazy about them, but now it feels like every year we get a new lifeless open world game, and the genre has just really died for me. But there are some people who love that style of game and eat it up. There are some people who, you know, Red Dead Redemption 2 was their favorite game of all time, and that's equally valid as my opinion, right? So, or as valid as my opinion. It's not my opinion. It's as valid as my opinion. So everybody can see it how they want, but no, I strongly disagree with this one, but thank you for a very spicy take. Next up, we have Bruh, the Squeakquel. We should have got way more perks changed in the new mid-chapter update. I disagree. I think that changing 39 perks, about probably 10 to 12 of those being very meta perks, is remarkably massive. And when you think about there being roughly 110 perks for each side, that's not a perfect amalgamation, but let's say it's 110 for each side. So you add that up and you get 220 plus. To get about 40 of those being done is relatively massive, and there's no guarantee that this is the last that they do of it. I think they'll keep going once they see that everything that's been changed in this patch is not either completely useless or especially overpowered. So no, I don't agree. I appreciate what they did there. I thought 39 was quite a few. Next up, we have Windy City Bum, Chi-Town represent. Those, not that I'm from Chi-Town, mind you, I'm just saying it's a cool city. Those complaining about the upcoming perk and gameplay changes, haha, are predominantly survivor-only mains that rely on second chance perks to even play the game. Whenever I swift in public DBD Discord, nearly every group I play with has a lobby full of metagamers. Rarely do I find others like myself that use fun/different builds. I definitely think it's true that survivors are more upset about the upcoming changes than killers are, but I don't think that's inherently because survivors are whinier. I think it's because it is hitting harder on survivors. Survivors have created this meta, and by the way, to no fault of their own, because they were given the tools to do this, because they were almost encouraged to, and not almost, I'd say they were encouraged to do this, but to rely on second chance perks, to rely less on your own skill and to rely more heavily on perks that act as get out of jail free cards. And what's happening with this update is a lot of those get out of jail free cards are being collected. They're being taken away. And what you see for killers is really a minor nerf to Noed that doesn't really do a lot to bring down the overall value of the perk, and a nerf to Pain Resonance that will probably knock it from its current place in the meta, but definitely doesn't make it a bad perk. These perks are remaining relatively good. I would say the only massive hit would be Ruin getting hit, and even then, I had a comment saying that I was completely out of line for saying Ruin would still be somewhat meta, still be pretty meta actually, but I still think Ruin's gonna be good. I think that when you can have passive regression, that really factors in well, even if it's in the form of a hex perk, which it kind of has to be for something as strong as Ruin. Yeah, so I agree with you. I do think it is mostly survivors complaining about the upcoming rework. But I also want to put it out there. I've seen a lot of survivors who are very high on it and who are very excited about this. So overall, I think the community reaction has been pretty good to this PTB that's coming out. And overall, I would say that yes, it's true, most survivors are highly meta gamers, but I can't tell you how many comments I've gotten from people saying like, hey, I've been using autodidact since I saw your video and I love it. So there are definitely people out there who still play the game for fun. Next up, we have Chris LaRusso, who says, I think survivors should do something to do gens. For example, go find something to start repairing or doing something to turn them on. So this is something that the devs have talked about. They said they contemplated it. They even went through some pre-builds to see how it would work. And they said that it just killed the loop of the game and that nobody within behavior liked it. Now, I know some people are going to mock that and they're going to say, but behavior are terrible at their own game, yada, yada, yada. But I actually generally agree with them. I think that Dead by Daylight is vastly different from something like Evil Dead or Friday the 13th, where the setup is a big part of those games. And I think that DBD's moneymaker is its core loop. So no, I don't think they should add something like that. But, you know, to each their own. Billy Bob Joe says, killers... Sorry, that name is fantastic. I really like it. Killers should have speedy exhaustion perks also. Yeah, you know what? Give killers dead hard and give survivors no ed. It's the only fair thing to do here. Rico says the game needs to stop trying to create a perk balance between killer and survivor and instead focus on reworking certain aspects and abilities so that the game actually becomes a horror game and not a horror collection, which I believe is the reference to the devs saying that they see DBD as becoming like Smash for horror. I think that's the meaning of horror collection there. Survivors should be able to complete their objectives more easily, but they should be more vulnerable and generally shit scared to do anything, as killers are more stealthy with lower base terror radius and with better vision. That is an interesting idea. So I want to give you credit for the thought of making survivors more vulnerable and killers more deadly is interesting, but I think that after basically, after 6 years of this game being how it is, I think such a drastic change would probably kill the game. Where it is interesting, what I would rather see is a new game try out your idea and see how that works out. Because I do think it's genuinely interesting and it is a very hot take, but I just don't think it's right for DBD. Next up, we have GameZine, who says, and I can't believe this, blaspheme, DBD devs are actually getting decent. And you know what? Hold up now. I gotta put on my shill pants again, my shill shirt. Alliteration, how about that? Yeah, I agree. I think that, look, there are always going to be issues and spaghetti code will stay spaghetti code, but we just had a patch come out, or a big chapter come out with the dredge, and nothing major broke. There wasn't, to my knowledge, and I'm sure somebody's gonna let me know in the comments where I'm wrong here, but by the way, I say that like, I don't want that to be mistaken for, resentment, because I always appreciate the comments. Let me know when I get things wrong, and it keeps me honest. So I don't think they had to shut down any maps or any perks or anything like that after the release of the Dredges chapter, which I can't remember the title of, Roots of Dread, and that's it. And I think that while some may say it's sad that we have to hold that up as like as a thing we praise them for, you know what? I'll take it. It's progress, and this is like 1 in a row. So now if they do it with the next chapter, Project W, it'll be 2 in a row. Yeah, I think the devs are doing a great job. They just released one of the very coolest killers they've ever put out. I think that I love everything about the Dredge, and yeah, I'm a big fan, and I think they're doing a great job. So I hope that they continue at the rate they're going, because so far 2022 has been the year of the W for behavior. This is a deeply embattled studio who has seen a lot of criticism from their community and from their player base, myself included, by the way. I've always said I'll never be a Fog Whisperer because I was too critical of them at some points, or because I was critical of them at some points. But let me be on the front lines and say they have been killing it in 2022. So completely agree. Next up, Kurt Bosarge. Hope I got your name right. I apologize if I didn't. I'm going to summarize this one, right? I'm going to summarize this one because it's rather lengthy. It is up on the screen. You can read it in its entirety if you want to, but I have read it all. So basically, Kurt is coming in saying that DBD needs a class system similar, by the way, to what Evil Dead has, where in Evil Dead you have a healer class and you have a warrior class and so on and so forth. So in this instance, the proposed classes are the savior class and the engineer class and so on and so forth. And I'm going to say, much like the comment about making survivors more vulnerable and killers more deadly to try to make the game more horror based, this is a cool idea for a different game. I don't think this works for DBD because part of the fun of DBD is that you get to pick the survivor with whom you most identify. Whether it's how they look, whether it's their lore, whatever it is, even if it is their perks, you get to pick the one with whom you identify the most, and I think that's kind of cool. I think that's a very neat aspect of it, and I would hate to have to stop playing Jeff, because I'm a Jeff main, just because all of a sudden he's put into a class that I don't like to play as much. So I disagree, but I do think it's a cool idea. Next up, Riley. Any killers within 24 meters of a hook survivor for longer than 25 seconds receives the hindered status effect for 60 seconds and are unable to gain bloodlust during the duration. So what Riley is getting at here is the concept of penalizing camping killers. And what I don't like about this one is sometimes camping is the right move, and I don't like the thought of being penalized when, let's say, I have one of those situations where all 3 survivors are swarming the hook and I'm hanging out around the hook, and all of a sudden I'm getting penalized for it, in addition to the blood point penalty that I'm already suffering. So no, I don't love that. I don't love that, but you know, I see where it's coming from. Bruh2 also said the game should focus on horror more. So in a general sense, I kind of agree with it, but we've already kind of talked about, you know, where I don't think it should go. But yeah, I think killers like the Dredge or Ghostface that can make the game a little creepier, I'm all for it. I think that's super fun, and I say, yeah, be as spooky as you want to be. Next up, Cutie, I would imagine is how that's pronounced. Maybe it's Cuddy. It says, Blight as a killer is overall pretty bad. He's just another speed killer, and we don't need another one, especially the Legion is just an easier version of the Blight. Now, my issue with that is that, A, Legion's power is designed to injure an entire team rather quickly, whereas Blight is intended to take down one survivor, one of 4, rather quickly. Also, you say that Legion is an easier version of Blight, but Legion is also a far weaker version of Blight. Blight is just substantially stronger than Legion, so I disagree with this one. When you say Blight is bad overall, if you mean he's bad as in you don't like playing against him, I am sympathetic to that one. If you are saying that he's bad from a balance standpoint, as in he's not meta, no, Blight's very, very strong. Fully disagree there. Next, we have another Blight one. You got a ways to go, says Blight is just as miserable to go against as Nurse. He may not be able to go through walls, but he gets 4 chances to correct himself, while Nurse has the 1. Now, it is worth noting with certain add-ons, Nurse can have more than 1, but I get what you're saying. We're going base here. And I would say that a top-tier Blight is almost as bad as a top-tier Nurse. Very hard to go against. However, there are little things you can do against Blight that are a little more useful than what you can do against Nurse. Because with Nurse, the name of the game is basically just break line of sight and hope that she guesses wrong, which is kind of frustrating because so much of that depends on what the killer does as opposed to what you, the survivor, are actually capable of doing. Whereas with Blight, there are ways to run a Blight that make yourself a little safer. However, some of the techs that Blights have learned are just ridiculous and probably need to go. So I'll agree that Blight can be very frustrating, but I don't agree with the rest of that. Let's see, Dredgen War 237 says, Bubba is unironically an incredibly well-designed character if you're looking at being authentic to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from power to perks. Now, I agree with part of this and I disagree with part of this. No, actually, you know what? I mostly disagree with it. So what I agree with is when you say well-designed if you're looking at being authentic, Bubba is a very defensive killer, and in the film, Bubba was just out to defend his house. So, yeah, I like that, and I do think that, I think Bubba's well-designed. I think Bubba is better than a lot of people make him out to be, and overall, yeah, I like where Bubba is as a character. He was rushed into the game, but he's in a good place now. Next, Lord Octopussy, just incredible name, says speed limiter and iridescent flesh should be base kit on Bubba. This speed limiter, no. full stop, no. It's just a no from me. Next, we have YNF. You can use just one of these if you want. Sprint Burst. Okay, yeah, so this is, I listed this one as collection. So this is a collection of hot takes. We're just going to boom, boom, boom down these if I agree or not. Sprint Burst is the worst exhaustion perk. Strong disagree. I actually think it's the best exhaustion perk. RPD is a good map. Agree. I think it looks cool. I do think it would really benefit killers. Like, you know, I'm a clown main, and one thing I would really love to see with RPD is just cut it in half. It's just, with the 3 stories, it's a little too much. But yeah, I think it's a cool map. I like RPD. I'm glad it's in the game. I just think it's a little too big. Overcome is in the top 3 for exhaustion perks behind Dead Hard and Life. If we're talking post nerf to Dead Hard, I can't really say for sure because I want to see it in action. So if we're talking in the current state, as I've already said, I think Sprint Burst is debatably the best exhaustion perk right now. And after Dead Hard's nerf, it will be the best exhaustion perk. Dead Hard is currently probably the best exhaustion perk. I do think Lithe is probably better than Overcome, if only because Overcome is strapped with this major downside that insta-down killers can ignore it entirely. And if you're injured and you don't get healed, which is sometimes a waste of time, you won't get to proc it again. So Overcome is awesome. I highly encourage people to run it, but it has some very real downsides that keep it from being a top 3 exhaustion perk. Aftercare is overpowered. Disagree. No, I think it's too easy to lose those stacks, and I think that they're difficult enough to acquire that while it is a strong perk, and I think more people should run it and would like to run it if they would just give it a chance, I don't think it's overpowered. I think it's properly powered. And then we need fewer licensed killers and more original killers. I hate to be a fence sitter. I really hate to be a fence sitter. But with this one, licensed killers get the community hyped. They bring in new eyes. And in the case of so many of them, they've been done really well. However, it's hard for me to argue against more original killers when we have absolute badasses like Oni and like Deathslinger and like Clown and like Dredge. I mean, so many cool killers are original that, yeah, I mean, I generally like to see original ones, but I also understand where people really like the licenses. Whew, gotta catch my breath here. This just going is gonna wear me out. Okay, all of Quentin's perks are underrated. Yeah, to some extent. I think Pharmacy's probably about to get a lot worse, but yeah, I think they're generally underrated. And then we need Shirtless Dwight. Completely agree. Not a hot take there, though. Everyone agrees with that. Next, we have Maddox Morgan, who, by the way, special shout out, almost always the first one to comment on my videos. So hey, I appreciate that. Maddox says, I don't like Dredge's power because it follows the anti-loop chain, and Sadako should have been the anniversary killer. Steve is the best survivor, and nerf Pig. Poor Pig. Poor Pig. I'm going to assume that one's a joke because obviously, you know, nobody actually believes that we should nerf Pig, presumably. Steve being the best survivor, I know you're not talking from a viability standpoint. You're talking about from a favorite standpoint. Who your favorite survivor is completely subjective. I think Jeff is the best survivor, but you know what? To each their own. You can make a legitimate case for any of them. As far as the Dredge one, this is the spiciest part of it. I disagree. I don't think it's as problematic of an anti-loop power as some of them in the past. And, you know, I don't know. I mean, I agree that it's kind of disappointing that it seemed like with Sadako, we were getting away from all of the anti-loop killers. And then we get one who has some anti-loop capabilities. But overall, I think the Dredge is just way too much fun for me to hate. But, you know, give me like half a year to a year of playing against the Dredge, and maybe I'll come back and I'll say, you know what? It's gotten old. I don't enjoy it anymore. But overall, you know, pretty spicy take. I think the Dredge has split people. It's 50-50. Some people love the Dredge. Some people hate the Dredge. So, you know, in that way, it's pretty spicy. Next up, IHS Games says they need to stop giving cosmetics to the same survivor, Fang Michaela, etc. Fang Meg Michaela, etc. They think that just because people play the survivors more means that they have dedicated cosmetics to them in order to make money, when in reality the reason people don't play the other survivors, like Adam, Yui, Jeff, etc., is because they aren't giving these survivors any good cosmetics consecutively. If they gave Yui decent cosmetics, I bet many more people play Yui. If they gave Adam more, they're essentially creating a problem. Same solution, getting tired of... Okay, so There is another one in here about this, by the way. I think it's like 2D. Okay, yeah. I'll put this one up here too. Terry Hat 55 has the opposite take. It says, people need to stop complaining about the same survivors getting cosmetics. They give cosmetics to the most played survivors. So when Jeff and Jonah don't get many, barely anyone complains. My take on these is I'm more sympathetic to the thought of giving a lot of cosmetics to every character, because I am more of the opinion that one reason we see so many, one reason we see so many Fangs is because Fang gets a new cosmetic basically every day. a little hyperbole on my part there. Nia gets a lot of new cosmetics, Claudette gets new cosmetics, yada yada. We get it. There are certain survivors that get way more cosmetics than others, and you know, that's what's interesting about it, because you can't say, oh, well, I think they're just playing these survivors because they're the hot ones. Because you can look at it, and Adam is an attractive character. Felix is an attractive character. Yui is an attractive character. And yet, these characters don't get many cosmetics, and they're not played very much compared to the others. Now, I will say, for me personally, I don't know, I would say I see a decent amount of Yuis. Not nearly as many as I see of the upper echelon that you see all the time. I would generally say yes. I think people play survivors who they can get cool skins for. So, you know, overall. But is it really a big deal? No. But yeah, as a Jeff main, I could really use some better cosmetics. Time Toast. Original survivors should have licensed legendary skins. You would get a bunch of characters who weren't in the game, and it's better than waiting for characters to come out in a new chapter. I 1000% agree with this one. And you know, I want to talk about this. This is what I was kind of referring to in my, what was it, like the new era of DBD or whatever it was called that had the Attack on Titan cover. And a lot of people seem to think that was a negative video, and that's on me. Clearly something got lost in translation there. But I was trying to say pretty much this, was that this was this new era where instead of having to rely on a chapter to bring in an outside license, we could get these little things where cosmetics, legendary cosmetics, turn a character completely. And that was all I was saying with that. So I don't know. I completely agree with that. Next up, F for F says having or excel only cosmetics for original characters should not be a thing. Yeah, and you know, I agree with this because you said original characters. Obviously, licensed characters, nothing they can do about it. But yeah, for original characters, it's greedy, it's stupid, and for all the praise I've given them, I'm gonna have to condemn behavior on that one and say very uncool. Next up, we have Glenn the Gamer, who says Gerald should be a canon DBD outfit and behavior needs to stop patching it. Okay, so here's my thing with that. I think the fun of Gerald is that behavior clearly hates it so much, or maybe Konami hates it. Somebody hates it, right? And that's what makes it so fun. Every time I see a Gerald, it's just a real middle finger to the man. And that's where I love it. I think it's so fun. So I somewhat agree, but I also kind of disagree there. Next up, the Traveling Marauder says, I'm actually going to miss old Dead Hard. Yeah, I just disagree. I disagree so strongly. Marco Polo says Dead Hard isn't bad to go against. It's only bad when the survivor is good. You could say that about any meta perk, though, right? I mean, you could give, like, the worst player in the game the strongest perk for survivor or killer, and the odds are they're going to misuse it and not make the most of it. So I don't think that's a great argument, personally. Let's see. Logan Jackson comes in, I mean, top rope. This is an Eddie Guerrero frog splash here. This is devastating. Death Garden was better than Dead by Daylight. Logan, I disagree with you, my man. I cannot say I agree here. That is, Death Garden to me was proof positive that the DBD formula is so specific that you can't just slap it onto other genres and call it a day. I did think it was cool that they got Terminator, though, and I would love to see a Terminator chapter in DBD. Next up, hot take, Deathslinger is very, very weak after his nerfs. He's weaker, for sure. He's definitely a lot weaker. Would I say he's weak? No, because he's still what I would consider to be A+ tier in the one-on-one chase. Now, some people are going to hear that and only hear part of what I said. I'm not saying he's A+ tier. I am saying in one-on-one chases, Deathslinger is an A+, if not an outright S. Very, very intimidating to go up against a truly cracked slinger. However, the nerfs definitely hurt him, and he's, you know, essentially to me, he's kind of like a worse Pyramid Head. with fewer upsides. So yeah, he's definitely worse, but I don't think he's very, very weak, to quote that one. Next up, we get a very pleasant comment from Evan Jackson, who says that it's a cool, like a fun thing to talk about, and also ends by saying that they hope everybody reading this is having a wonderful day or night. That's lovely. Thank you, Evan. That's always nice to see. So Behavior should stop making original chapters altogether and just release licensed chapters. And again, as always, you can read through the full thing here, but that again is the gist of it. I'm going to disagree. I think original chapters are very important. I think it's important that Dead by Daylight tells their stories in addition to bringing in superstars. So just as important as it is to, get the big headline band that everybody knows, you also need young, up-and-coming, hungry bands who can come in and make a difference at the show, to make a bit of a kind of rough analogy there. But you see what I'm saying. You need your own original stuff, too. And I think that's the way to go. So Dandy comes in with a very well-written book here, where Dandy says, Decisive Strike is one of the healthiest perks in the game, and basically goes on to explain the reasoning for that. And here's my thing. I somewhat agree. I agree that it is a terrible feeling to get taken off the hook. The killer hits you, you have borrowed time, the killer still goes after you. And, thankfully with Decisive Strike, if they down you, you get yet another lease on life. So that's essentially your second chance if you're factoring in borrowed time. I understand where that feels nice and where it's countering not great behavior on the killer's part. What I don't necessarily agree with is saying that it's a super healthy perk, because I just don't know that, that type of tunneling. And some people are going to probably let me hear about this. That type of tunneling where the killer is just adamant that you have to die, it doesn't happen a lot to me in my experience. Now, again, that's anecdotal. That is not everybody's experience. Maybe yours is different. But in my experience, it's very rare for a killer to just completely unprovoked decide I have to die and I have to die quickly. So I don't know. I kind of disagree, but I also see where it's a healthy perk in its own right. I think the concept for the perk is healthy. I think the execution could be changed a little bit. Next up, Yali Dev. Yeah, Valley Dev. I read that as a Y. Valley Dev says, when a person on the first hook gets kindred and I can see my other two teammates are on gens, I'll sacrifice one of their hook stages to guarantee 3 gens. This is kind of a question of etiquette, and generally I agree, just don't be surprised if they're mad at you for it. I don't think you're doing anything wrong there necessarily, but, they have every right to be a little frustrated by that. Raging Alcoholic, who I want to remind, you're only an alcoholic if you choose to put labels on it. Drink up, my friends. Raging Alcoholic says face camping isn't that bad. Just survive on hook as long as possible, waste enough time. Yes, okay, so here's the thing. Face camping should not be a viable strategy, but it is because people just bum rush the hook as if it's nothing, and they make it into a viable strategy where then the killer gets to say, scoreboard, I got the 4K, I got the 3K, and it's the most frustrating thing. That's why when I'm on hook, I always tell my teammates, don't come save me, and then they'll come in and they'll die, and they'll be, yeah, I wanted to save you though, and it's like, no, I would have considered it a win if all of you got out. So yeah, face camping is only bad because it reveals just how stupidly altruistic people are. By the way, myself included. I tell my teammates not to save me, but when the tables are turned, I tend to run straight into the buzzsaw myself. So I am nothing if not a hypocrite. Infernal Yoshi, another great name. I love you guys so much. These names are great. Hot take, a FNAF chapter is highly overrated and would not work well in the game. I don't think it's overrated. I think it would bring a lot of new players to the game, and I think it would be a smashing success in its own right. But I treat FNAF kind of in the same way I treat Trickster, and I just say, you know what? This isn't for me. This is not made for me. I would not be that hyped for it, but I think a lot of people would be very excited for it, so I'd like to see it. The Epic Gmod Boy says, oh no, we have two here. That are defending Freddy. Okay, here we go. I feel like Freddy gets too much hate. Yeah, mostly from me. I always thought Freddy's ability was good despite it being changed, and enjoyed playing against him. A lot of people argued the Dream World looked boring. Freddy was just boring to play against. I always found it very cool looking and a cool gimmick, though I do agree with there being a lot of jerky Freddy mains. And then in addition to that, the Unholy Pun says, I don't think Freddy is actually that boring. His power doesn't really fit him that well, but I still find playing against him as fun. Okay, so Firstly, on the comment about the dream world, for all that I'll roast Freddy on, the dream world looks awesome. I think it's really cool. As far as Freddy being fun to face, I don't think he's fun to face. I don't think he's nearly as bad as he used to be to face. Overall, I think he's just unremarkable. He's kind of ho hum, but no, I don't think he's terrible. You know, I'm terrible as in terrible to face. Terrible balance wise, oh, you betcha. But terrible to face, not really. Next up, we have some hag takes here because people have some thoughts on the hag. And what's funny about this is you have this one where Big Daddy Square essentially says that hag has been nerfed into the ground. And then you have Holly who says hag is not broken. Basically making the case that hag can be extremely strong in the right hands, and also says, hi food, love you, have a nice day. Holly, I love you too, thank you so much. So, do I think hag has been nerfed into the ground, or do I think that hag is just a well-balanced character? I lean more towards Holly's side on this. I say that hag is actually a pretty well-balanced character with decided weaknesses, and really, it's nowhere near as easy. So, people always talk about the nurse. Nurse is so impossible to learn. Hag is 1,000 times harder. I'm sorry if you hate me for speaking the truth here, but Nurse ignores looping. Hag has a much harder time with almost every aspect of the game. Hag is pitifully slow, has a terrible line of sight. She's got a finite number of traps she can put out. Her traps, by the way, can be destroyed with flashlights, which are pretty much, I'd say, the second most common thing survivors bring behind a med kit. Then she's got to basically sit by and let 2 to 3 gens pop before she's even really willing to do anything. Hag is very difficult to play properly, and for that reason, I think she is actually well balanced. Not that being difficult automatically equals balance. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a couple of entries. Hillbilly without the overheat mechanic wasn't busted and was more fun. Yeah, the overheat mechanic for Hillbilly is ridiculous. It's necessary for Leatherface, but for Billy it's just completely unnecessary. I don't understand it. I don't like it. Yeah, I think they need to remove it for Billy. I don't think he was busted at all. I think some of his add-ons you could argue were busted, but I don't think he was busted. Okay, so this next one, Brocken, I hope I said it. It's unfair to see killers as scummy when they camp and tunnel. It's a legitimately viable strategy. Yeah, I agree. It's okay to be frustrated by the strategy, but to try to take it outside of the game and to say, you are a bad person, you are scummy, you are being a jerk. Just because they essentially played efficiently. Look, I'm just going to say it. The best way to win in this game is to try to tunnel 2 survivors out of the game as quickly as possible and ignore their teammates. And I know some people are going to disagree with me on that one. That's fine. But the sooner you can make it a 3v1, you have already made the game a lot more in your favor. And as soon as it's a 2v1, it's basically over. This is just fact, but I understand that I'm saying my opinion is fact, so I guess I'm arrogant. I guess I need to humble myself. I don't know. I think it's a basic question of numbers, and I think to me, camping and tunneling is not fun. I don't like doing it as a killer, and I don't like facing it as a survivor, but it certainly doesn't make you a bad person, and I think people need to get a little less heated with this game. Next, Lauren Edenfield says, playing killer can be the most stress, rage-inducing moments of somebody's life. Sometimes you destroy the survivors, and other times the survivors runs you around a little bit too long and 2 or 3 gens are done. As a killer main, I hate gen rushing, even though that's just how you're supposed to play the game. This one doesn't really feel like a hot take. This one just feels rather factual. Yeah, killer can be highly stressful, and there are times where I log in to play DBD, and I'm like, you know what? I just don't have it in me to play killer today. Let's see, Time Toast, who I believe we've already seen before, but I think they already had a comment in here, but I apologize if maybe I'm misremembering. They say buying a killer or a survivor just for their perks or one perk is the dumbest reason to buy a character. You buy them because you want to play as them. No, I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of where DBD teeters on that pay-to-win line. Like, when I first got this game on PC, I didn't outright buy all of it because I played on Xbox for like over a year. And when I came to PC, I didn't just outright buy everybody. I bought Bubba first because I wanted barbecue and chili. And I don't think it was stupid. You know, I don't think it was a bad idea. I don't regret it. So I disagree there. But that being said, if you buy a character, yeah, try them out. See how you like them. Next up, Shiverse says, killers near a hooked survivor should be indicated with the status icon. This is just another take on penalizing camping. And, you know, I don't know. I just, as, you know, I don't know. I worry because sometimes it's the right thing to do. But, you know, again, that's me. Like, sometimes camping's the right thing to do. Prion says, the biggest factor in a killer being broken in DBD is extreme mobility. If all killers had similar level of mobility, Pyramid Head would be number one. I'm not really going to get into the debate of if every killer was a 115 movement speed killer or lower, who would be number one. Even though, I mean, I guess to me, I think it's Nurse. I think if you speed Nurse up her base movement, I think that's terrifying. But yeah, I think mobility is the big deciding factor a lot of the time for how good a character is. So you take someone like Clown, for example. Clown is pretty good at the one-on-one. So you would think he's a pretty good killer. But because his mobility is pretty lacking, he's generally thought of as a mid-tier killer at best. So yeah, I do agree with the sentiment that mobility is basically where we base all that off of. Next up, Wallace/Alex says, even in what is arguably the best state this game's ever been in, playing killer is straight up awful. It's nothing but 15 to 25 minutes of stress and not being worth it in the slightest. I mean, yeah, killer's pretty much at the hardest it's ever been, but worry not. You know, the night is darkest just before the dawn, and we're about to get some pretty nice killer buffs in the PTB. So, you know, keep your eyes peeled for those. Leah says, Legion is the most boring killer to play against. The constant hit, run, min gameplay is so boring. Yeah, I agree. I think Legion is wildly popular, and I think it's largely because of their aesthetic, because I cannot think of a gameplay reason that people enjoy Legion. I can see where people who like to play as Legion enjoy them. You know, in What Does Your Killer Main Say About You video, the one on my channel, the most common comment I seem to get on that one is Legion main saying, yeah, I just like to go fast. So I can certainly see that. But in terms of playing against Legion, yeah, absolutely miserable. Legion, sorry, not Legion. Yumiko says Legion is a fun/top 3 killer. Now, here's the debate. If you're saying top 3 viability-wise, absolutely not. Legion, out of the 28 killers, viability-wise, Legion is probably not a top 20 killer. If you're talking about fun, highly subjective, I find Legion pretty rough to play against. However, I don't inherently mind it because I think Legion's pretty weak, and therefore I tend to escape against Legions. But yeah, I don't know. In terms of, when you're talking about fun, it becomes so subjective. So if they're fun to you, I think that's awesome. There's a killer for everybody. Next up, Maya. Start playing when Trickster was announced, and since then it's become one of my main games that I play with. That said, I know it's like to feel ignored. Yeah, okay, so this is a question of MMR. And yeah, I don't know. I think I think it's basically a case being made here that the game is catered to the long-time and dedicated players rather than new players. And I do think there is a real issue in this game of you step into it and there's so much to learn and there's so much to see. And you're getting criticized by people who have 3,000 hours in it. But, oh, you use this perk, how dare you? Use this tactic, how dare you? And there's definitely a real, I guess, barrier to entry that probably doesn't need to exist, but that I don't have a great solution for. So I agree, but I can't really offer much in the way of like, oh, well, they should do this about it. So yeah, generally agree though. Claire the Summoner, even with tutorials in MMR, the game isn't noob friendly in the slightest. As previously mentioned, agree. Pedro says, I feel like Nemesis is one of the most balanced killers in the game. Which, by the way, I'm shocked by this. Lots of Nemesis comments. Lots of people who had stuff to say about the Nemi boy. I didn't expect that at all. So, let's continue. Pedro feels like Nemesis is one of the most balanced killers in the game. He has some counterplay, and a good Nemesis can snowball if played correctly. So, some skill, take out his play, Yes! Disagree. All of that, disagree. I don't think he's that well balanced. I think Nemesis, when played at the highest level, or even just at a high level, is downright oppressive. He's one of those killers that feels so bad in the same way that Plague or Myers feels bad. because you can suffer for your teammates being bad at the game. And while that makes some sense, and I'm not saying it's completely unreasonable, I don't think it's fun, right? I don't think it's ever going to be fun when Nemesis' first chase with you, he's already at tier 3 of his power because your teammates can't dodge the tentacle, which, by the way, is pretty difficult most of the time. So in terms of Nemesis's, that is not fun to say either, Nemesis's. In terms of the Tyrant's actual balancing, not broken, I wouldn't say, but I don't think that Nemesis is very fun to face. And I think that these powerful anti-loop killers are generally balanced in a 1v4, but in the 1v1 they feel terrible. Next up, GG, presumably, or Geeg, says Nemesis is better than Pyramid Head, and goes on to list all the reasons. I'm just going to stop this one short by saying I fully disagree. I think they're close. I think that I would give Pyramid Head a kind of middle A tier, maybe even high A tier ranking, whereas I give Nemesis a low A tier to high B tier. I don't think they're massively different from one another, but I generally think Pyramid Head is a better killer. Next, another Nemesis one. Nemesis is an S tier killer. I just kind of tipped my hand there. I said high B, low A. Good killer, not S tier though. I think S tier is reserved for those who basically can be completely busted. So Nurse, Blight, maybe Hag. I don't even think Hag's up there. I don't think Spirit's up there after her nerf. I don't know. Speaking of Hag should be deleted from... Oh, there's another collection one. Okay, hold up. I must have not seen that when I screenshotted it. Hag should be deleted from the game. I kind of agree. I don't like the Hag so much. Corrupt should be base kit. No. No. I see where you're coming at that because gen speeds tend to be just crazy. But I think that with the 10 seconds being added, hopefully something that drastic won't be necessary. I don't care what the devs say. Myers needs a rework. Myers is very weak. And like I said, sometimes you get caught and you get hit with tier 3 despite the fact that you barely fed him at all. I understand that. I still think Myers is basically only in need of a few touch-ups and not like a whole... I would say a slight revision rather than a full-on rework. I don't know. Also, Pyramid Head, Freddy, and Twins need an add-on rework. Twins need some of theirs buffed. Freddy could use a full-on rework. And Pyramid Head, yeah, I agree with what you're talking about with the add-ons here, because Pyramid Head especially, you see people run like 2 of his add-ons, and they're both the range ones. Holy cannoli. Ooh, this one is... I'm going to read all of this one because it's long, but also because I want everybody to see that I clearly considered the points here, right? So I'd say this is rather obvious, but here we go. 1, Nurse is the hardest killer by far, i.e. has a skill floor massively higher than any other killer. Her kill rates are really low for a reason, being that her completely ignoring the game mechanics isn't something that makes her easy, it's what makes her hard. I don't know how anyone who's tried this killer can in good faith say she's easy. 2, Nurse is an OP and should not be nerfed. By the way, we've moved into the Nurse section. If you don't want to hear about Nurse, the next few are going to be about Nurse. Just because bad survivors don't understand her counterplay doesn't make her an OP killer. So I'm going to go and stop it here. I don't like this kind of argument. I don't like this kind of argument where it's like, well, if you disagree with me, you're essentially just an idiot. I don't think that's effective. I don't think that wins people over to your side. I think it's a little too aggressive for the point being made here. I don't think that thinking Nurse is OP means you're automatically a bad survivor, which is kind of implied here. But anyway, continuing on. Breaking line of sight is easy, but making smart movements around obstacles and loops is what allows good survivors to extend chases against even great Nurse players. Not to mention stealth gamers counter her hard. Nurse has some of the worst anti-stealth of any killer, if not the worst. Her fatigue makes it really easy to lose sight, paired with her slow movement. Believe it or not, even great Nurse players still lose, not because of their game, not because off their game, or their aim is off some days, because they play against genuinely skilled survivors, of which there are a few, who understand Nurse's counterplay and win accordingly. It's for these 2 reasons, I believe, our people at Behavior should never change this killer. So for my hot take, Nurse is perfectly fine. Now, firstly, I do want to give Holy Cannoli this one. That is a hot take. Most people disagree with that, I would think. And you know what? I feel like I should just go through all of the nurse ones. Let me go through all of these nurse ones, and then I'll give my nurse thoughts. So, Yoshi Eclipse says, nurse being hard to learn, while partially true, is way overstated. I'm going to go in and tip my hand and say, yeah, I completely agree with that. The people who make nurse out to be some gargantuan task that, like, oh, well, if you spend the 10,000 years required to learn nurse, you deserve an OP killer. Like, no, she's not that hard. They're, as I've already said, there are harder killers to learn. Nerf Pig and Buff Nurse. Hey, what can I say? Vive la France. Nurse is perfectly fine as she is right now and does not need to be nerfed, says Camden Moore. And then, let's see, are we still on nurse ones? Yeah, Wolfie High says, hi, Food Man. Here's my personal hot take. A lot of people find strong nurses pretty unfun to play against, but I actually enjoy juking and faking out nurse players. I mean, I'd agree with that. I think it always feels good to juke a nurse. Aiden Rice says nurse is a problem. She fundamentally breaks the game, deserves a complete, entire rework. Her being a bit harder than other killers doesn't justify how busted she is. A character being hard doesn't mean that character is balanced. Now that's some powerful words there. We're going to return to that. Nurse's Blink should not count as an M1 attack. You know, I would have disagreed with this until, as mentioned by Vingerberg, Starstruck. What the hell behavior? What happened here? What the hell here? And then I'm a Bonehead comes in here, which, I mean, hey, we stand a self-deprecating name around here, saying, very unpopular opinion. I feel like the nurse isn't one of the best killers in the game. Sure, she can be pretty powerful if you know how to play her, but I think she is easy to juke. I kind of think she should have a faster speed too. Is it just me? And I don't even... Yeah, okay, that was the last nurse one. Okay. Whew. Deep breaths. Let's talk about nurse. Let's talk about nurse a little bit. So, the argument that nurse is not very strong, I am completely unsympathetic to. I think nurse is incredibly strong. I think nurse is the top tier of the top tier. I think that like if you have a nurse main who plays nothing but nurse and they're absolutely nutty with that character. So it was mentioned in Cannoli's comment that even the best nurses sometimes lose. And well, that's true because obviously you're not going to 4K every time. I would say that generally if you are a top tier nurse, and I mean cream of the crop, and you lose, you made mistakes. It wasn't really the survivors outplaying you. Maybe, you know, you load in and they all have brand new parts and nothing but second chance perks and prove thyself. You know, maybe, and their own comms and they're swift and they play absolutely perfectly. But that should say something about how strong nurse is, that this is the kind of scenario I have to draw up where I think about what would it take for a good player using this killer to lose. And generally speaking, I'll say my thoughts on nurse are that the good way to measure how broken she is imagine that she were added to the game instead of Dredge, right? Anniversary chapter comes out. It's the last breath with Nia, the nurse, and the Crotus Print Asylum. People would quit the game en masse. And you may think, well, Food, you're being dramatic. I don't think that's overly dramatic. I think people would lose their minds. A killer that ignores looping to this degree, to me, first off, again, she's not that hard. she's not that hard. Nurse is not, again, she's not impossible. People make it out to be like she's impossible. And by the way, let me go back. What Aiden said, a character being hard doesn't mean the character is balanced. So it's kind of similar. I remember when Game of Thrones had its final season and it just completely flopped. And Sophie Turner, who played Sansa Stark, came out and she said, well, a lot of people worked really hard on this. And, you know, my first thought with that is people working hard on something doesn't mean it's good. In the same way, a character being difficult doesn't mean that they're good for the game, right? It's not like, well, they're difficult, but, you know, they're difficult, so they should be really busted. I would say that if a character is difficult to play well, you should hopefully have a good reward for playing them well. And I'm sorry I'm spending a lot of time on Nurse here, but I just wanted to address this one because I think Nurse is the biggest problem in DBD right now. Nurse is absolutely busted. I think she is extremely unfun to play against unless you're going up against a medium tier or worse nurse. Because yeah, playing against like a bad nurse, super fun to, you know, juke the blinks and all that. But I don't see a world where Nurse could be released today and not be a massive controversy. She's just been in the game for so long that most people playing the game, the majority of people playing the game right now, have played the game in such a way that the nurse has always been there. And even more than that, for most of them, there was another public enemy in the Spirit that needed to be taken down. But now that Spirit is a lot more balanced, I think the nurse chatter is going to get louder and louder until she is inevitably nerfed. Now, moving on. Oni! Oni is the hardest killer to learn, in my opinion. I just completely disagree. I think Oni is a more powerful version of Hillbilly and Michael Myers. And yeah, I don't think he's that hard. Now, I'll say I've never been great at flicking, but I don't think he's that hard. And so, by the way, this is Salem Hex 666 who says this. And Salem, you mentioned that you've played Oni twice. I would say play Oni a lot more, and you will find that Oni is rather straightforward. Another small one is Huntress is the least fun killer to go against, and Billy Demo are the most fun to go against. Billy and Demo are up there in terms of most fun to go against. If you want my thoughts on most and least fun to go against, I actually made videos on this, and I'm pretty proud of those videos, so go check those out. They are on the channel. Speed Demon says, any overpowered perks, add-ons, etc., or bugs should be abused as much as possible. This way the devs essentially have to address it. I disagree, but I see the thought here, right? I see, and this is a spicy take. I see what you're saying. You're saying make it so that the devs can't ignore it. However, Dead Hard's been busted for a while and people have been using it, and only just now are they changing it. So I don't know. I don't like, especially, I would say I'm okay with every part of that comment except bugs. I think that using bugs to your advantage, even if it's for the goal of getting them patched, is not cool. Next up, I'm going to think Simone Pedrati. Let's see. First off, I love the cute kitty in the picture. We have a whole pets channel in the Discord, so make sure you do that one. Or at DasFoodGaming on Twitter. Just send me pictures of your pets. I love pets. Now, DBD needs to give more love to previous chapters. Go back, give Ghostface a map, etc., etc. Yeah, so I'm all here for that. I'm all for buffing the chapters that maybe weren't complete when they came out, because I understand some of them, like, so you think about Bill. Bill doesn't need anything else because Bill was released with everything they intended. In the case of some of these, I would love to see a Twins map or a Ghostface map or a Trickster map especially would be really cool. Yeah, I think it's a real shame that we have so many past chapters that feel incomplete. Next up, we get into the section talking about perks. This is our longest section, so I'm going to power through this. Hot take, says Jimbo5478. The perk that allows totems to be broken by a killer when it's boon should be base kit. I'll semi-agree. That may be too strong, but I kind of agree. Screen crash. Actually, no, I disagree. I think what it should be is when you destroy a totem, there should definitely be a cooldown before that same survivor can put a totem. Can boon another totem. Next up, Screen Crash 711. Bite the bullet is better than Iron Will? No. No. Strongly disagree. Strongly. Shadowborn should be base kit. No. Disagree. Overcome is much better than... No. Disagree. Yeah, I told you I was going to power through these. The letter E. What a solid letter. Prove Thyself is a top 5 survivor perk. Yeah. I would say it's up there, especially with the nerfs inbound. I think it would have previously been kind of muscled out by a few other perks, but now, yeah, I would say Prove Thyself. It's top 10 for sure, probably top 5. Braden Etwell, Ewell, sorry about that. I put a T in there for some reason. Says, there are likely so many perks that are pretty much weaker versions of others. New Overzealous is practically weaker Prove Thyself. 2 people on a single gen is better. Okay, so I think the thing here is that too many perks are similar to one another, which I'd agree with, but I think the beauty can be found in the nuance. Let's see. Snappy says, there's a lot of perks I wish were turned into general perks. Why does Felix get Visionary? Why does Hattie get Overzealous? Why does Oni get Zanshin Tactics? Doesn't make sense. Well, you know, out of all of those, I would say Zanshin Tactics and Windows of Opportunity are the 2 that I would most like to see become just common perks, because I think they're good for new people learning the game. However, in the case of like Felix getting Visionary and all that, You know, I mean, you have to give characters teachable perks, and I think that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles in that way. I'm only really in favor of giving very basic, almost like, here, let's learn the game type of perks as the common ones. So I don't have a problem with teachable perks in that sense, but I do think you bring up a good point with Zenshin Tactics, and I think Windows of Opportunity fits that same build. Billy Bob Joe, Part 2. Hoo-hoo. Insidious should be base kit. Oh gosh, no. Whoa, what are we doing? Permanent stealth when there's one gen left and stay active for the rest of the match? I mean, first off, that would just completely remove the need to even have stealth killers, because every killer's a stealth killer at that point. They're just way too strong. Do not agree. Strolling on fire. Hey, you got fire in your name. This is gonna be a hot take. My hot take is that there are far too many perks that should be merged together rather than have standalone slots. Most of said perks should fuse with other perks that stack semi-efficiently with the very perks that fully outclass them in every way. My example is Premonition, which, by the way, yeah, Premonition, what a garbage perk. What a bad perk. Bad perk, not good, don't bring. Premonition's singular benefit of a sound cue when looking loosely in the killer's direction will always be outclassed by Spine Chill, Dark Sense, and Alert. Which, by the way, past video, I mixed up Dark Sense and Alert. I apologize. You can stop telling me. I've gotten a lot of comments about that. I apologize. I'm a big idiot, I know. For locating a killer's position, there's no other effect. Yeah, okay, so the general point being maybe merge some of the perks that do something similar, but one's way weaker than the other. What I would like to see is just rework the ones that are pretty much useless, like Premonition. Noed and Deerstalker should be base kit. That's a hard no for me. That's just the only thing that would be nice about Noed being base kit, and I mean the only thing, is that people would finally start breaking totems, but I just don't like the thought of that. Especially now with boons in the game, the issue there is that a killer could wait until the very last second to snuff your boon, guaranteeing that they get their Noed. So no, I don't like that. Tom Massey says, Sabotage with Toolbox should let you break the Trapper's traps again. No, Trapper's already so bad. Now, look, I'm going to give you credit. I saw some people, I read the replies to this one, and people were saying like, oh, you know, wow, that's a bad idea. Look, it's hot takes. If it's how you feel, it's how you feel. I just disagree with it. I think that for my personal taste, I don't think that's a good idea, because I think Trapper, if anything, needs to be stronger, not weaker. A goat named Olivia. Pigmains are secretly or openly furries. Pigmains, confirm this one, or confirm otherwise in the comments, because I can't say for sure, but I do think that if we were to look at like who the furry community plays on the Survivor side of things, the killer side of things, there's probably a healthy contingent that leans towards playing Pig and Huntress. Beto. I'm unsure on how to feel about the upcoming PTB. I'm glad they cut down on the grind, but 10 more seconds to the gen doesn't feel like that much more. I think it's going to feel like a lot more when you're actually on a gen, so I'm going to say hold your breath for that one. You like kind of wait for that before feeling too strongly, and you do say you're not sure how to feel, so clearly, you know, you're an intelligent person, you're contemplating it. I appreciate that. I would say just wait and see how it feels, because I think 90 seconds as opposed to 80 seconds is going to feel rather drastic. They did buff some other slowdown perks, so I guess shake it up the meta, which is nice. Yeah, agree. I just hope I don't end up missing All Reliable. One killer perk they should have nerfed to the ground, though, is Noah. The nerf isn't even that bad. I agree. I was really surprised that Noah didn't get hit that hard. What I would like to see is just from the second it activates, that 24-meter reveal is active, because I think Noed is a game-changing perk in every sense of the word, and frankly, 4 meters is just not that many. If you don't want to do the 24 meters, what I think would be great for Noed is, actually, I would say make it where it starts out something like 24 meters, and then after the 30 seconds or a minute, it becomes revealed to everyone on the map. So then a killer has to make the choice between going to their Noed or staying on the Survivor that they're definitely camping. So yeah, I mean, I agree with this one, even though I'm very optimistic about the PTB. Powder Keck says, I'm going to get some flack for this one. Good. This is one of the Pyramid Head ones. Pyramid Head needs his ranged attack wave, not the firing or recovery, to be like 10% faster. Okay, so I'm not going to read the rest of this because I have read it. Again, guys, I read through all the comments before doing this video. I'm not reading these for the first time. I disagree. Pyramid Head is currently very strong and really doesn't need anything in the way of buffs. Killer. Pyramid Head is a fun killer to face for me, says Atomic Gas 24. Dodging his punishment and trails in chase are fun, and guessing where cages spawn, also fun. Kind of to each their own. I think that there are times that Pyramid Head's ability feels rather oppressive, but I will agree that when you dodge the punishment, that feels good. And crouching through the trails, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I like seeing Pyramid Heads that like draw PPs in the environment and stuff like that. So overall, don't change the behavior. It's fine how it is. This one concerns something of the rule book. This one I get a lot of flack for when I stream. Also, hope your streaming is going well. TOA. As soon as the last generator pops, the Survivor rulebook flies out the window. Yes, 1000%. When the last generator pops, I always hate that. I hate it when people get onto a killer, you know, the last gen is popped and they camp the Survivor. And people say, oh, you campers. Like, where did you want them to go? Argentina? What did you want them to do? Where are they going to go? They know you're going to come for the teammate. And if you don't, great. They get to secure a kill instead of going over to the exit gate to watch you teabag them and click your flashlight. Like, yeah, as soon as the last gen pops, any kind of rulebook goes out the window, though I'd argue that generally speaking, the rulebook should probably be out the window in general. This one pertains to the Onryo, Sadako. Sadako should be able to pass through walls, while Manifested would be a lot more jump scary, says Huss Sam. Too strong. Too strong. She would be absolutely busted. So I'm going to disagree, but I agree she would be very spooky, so we'll call it 50-50. Let's see. Laurentonio, who by the way always has just the nicest comments on like all of my videos, and I do appreciate it. And I love the Patrick square dancing picture. That's fantastic. Hot take: the exit gates should open immediately at the start of the match if we're playing against a Spirit. Thank you for understanding. I do understand. Spirit is big, mega stinky, and it's just a hard pass for me, so I completely agree. We have a rather positive one from CJ Brown, who says, I've been playing the game since late 2018, and I believe the game is in the best state it's ever been in. I can't wait for the new changes, and I believe they are all amazing and well thought out. They really listened and looked at the stats, also make Stranger Things 2 behavior. Which, by the way, I just want to say this, if you are super hyped about the leak of a Stranger Things 2 chapter, hold your breath on that one, or don't hold your breath. I'm sorry, I should say don't hold your breath. I don't know that I think that's going to happen, but we'll see. I hope it does. As far as the actual part about the game being in the best state it's ever been in, I 1000% agree. I think that this upcoming patch is going to fix a lot of things that plague the game, but even before that, I mean, there are some things, you know, you think about all of the ways that DBD used to just be the most infuriating game in existence that are gone or altered. Yeah, I think it's in a great place. All right, some pertaining to survivors here. Yumiko says playing Survivor is really fun, and that's, you know, it's the general gist of this one. Yeah, I agree. I think people make Survivor out to be not fun. You know, it can be, but that's any online gaming experience. So yeah, I agree. Darth Vader, hey Darth. A hot take I have is that the game likes Survivors too much. Not saying it's Survivor-sided, just that if you're a top-notch insane killer, you have a flashlight click. Okay. Yeah. The game, you say you're not saying it's Survivor-sided. I'll go on and say it. It is kind of Survivor-sided, but that's the thing with balancing an asymmetrical game. It's very difficult, but yeah, I would say it is Survivor-sided, but not grossly so. Pedro says DBD sucks right now because Survivors are super solo players, so behavior needs to nerf Survivors until everyone starts to play like a real team. You know, I don't see that. Again, I see like mega altruism, so I'm going to disagree. I don't see that. Destiny Bond, not Blonde, so sorry. The sixth. This probably isn't a hot take, but what if Survivors had their own music in the lobby? So, not a hot take, but a very cool idea. Agreed. I believe this character from Metal Gear is pronounced Raiden, not Raiden, but I'm not certain of that, so please don't get mad at me in the comments because I haven't played the game. So, Raiden / the guy from Mortal Kombat with a cool hat, says, Survivors should have their own lobby music. This seems like a popular thought. Jam is not my name, which is interesting because, and I'm sorry if you heard that in the background, I had to adjust my seat. That means I don't know what your name is, but Jam, You say, I really enjoy going against bully squads. I say, I see your point. I love it so long as the bully squad's not as good as they think they are. If they're a bully squad and they demolish me, I don't have any fun. But there are few feelings better than going against a bully squad that you then feast on. So yeah, I agree. Mr. Paradox, Swift is the biggest problem of this game. I disagree. I think Swift is the saving grace of this game. Playing with friends is literally the main reason I still play it. Hot take. There's a lot of controversial ones. So, killer main tip versus Swifts. Find one you can down, do not pick up. Constantly keep hitting them. This will enrage the team, make a more fun match. Yeah, okay, so there is something to this. If you slug a survivor, their teammates are likely to come in, and you're likely to frustrate the team and probably walk out with a win. But keep in mind, perks such as We're Gonna Live Forever and Unbreakable do make this a little harder, as well as some add-ons for healing. Death Knight, Dead by Daylight on Switch is the best version to play. Wow. Wow, that is a hot take. That is a very, very hot take, and I don't even know how to feel about it. So I'll just say I've never played on Switch, so I can't say for sure. Haley says, not enough survivors tap the first gen to test for Ruin. Haley, I actually have a suggestion here. Run, what's the Surveillance, the pig perk, with Ruin, and watch how many times that actually does happen, because I promise you, it's happening a lot. Kerpurple says, I hate it when they make tomes for killers nobody plays. I disagree. I say this goes back to kind of the same argument as the cosmetics. I say show love to the less loved characters, and hopefully you can develop a real passionate fan base for them. The Fake Bennett says, the DBD community is not any more toxic than most game community. It's the only one with two different roles. Yeah, okay. So I don't think it's nearly as toxic as, say, I think it's about as toxic as Overwatch, which I played a lot of. I don't think it's nearly as toxic as Rainbow Six Siege, which I also played a lot of. And I have heard horror stories about certain other games like League of Legends and all that. So yeah, I agree with that fully. I don't think DBD is nearly as toxic as it's made out to be, which isn't to say it's not toxic, just not as toxic. He Suffers says, major reason the game struggles with growing is the community. I agree. I think that people come in and they're like, hey, I want to enjoy this new game. This looks fun. And the community is just like, no, don't. They come in and they basically see killer mains and survivor mains having these little slap fights, and the whole thing is just terrible. So yeah, I agree with that. Raging Alcoholic again says bad manners, like clicking, teabagging. They're not bad manners, it's just a little fun. Context matters. I think it's inherently bad manners, but I don't think it's a problem. I think that part of being a killer is being able to manage bad manners and not let them make you play poorly. Same goes for survivors. If they hit you on the hook, don't let that cloud your judgment. Keep a cool head, and cooler heads will prevail. Joey versus Horror says, I'ma say it once again. In my opinion, almost every single aspect of the Trickster feels completely out of place in this game, and going up against him is about as fun as watching my dog lay a steaming pile of fun on the floor and watching my Roomba smeared around for 10 minutes. So obviously Joey loves the Trickster. Trickster will always stick out like a sore thumb, but at this point, Trickster's way too popular to do anything about it. But yeah, I don't think Trickster's fun to face at all, but you know, yeah, I also think the design is very out there. Some people love it, some people hate it. I dislike it. That one person, oh, I know you, says can't really give any big opinions. I just started playing like 2.5 weeks ago. Playing against a good Trickster isn't fun. Halfway true. You would be fully correct if you would say playing against any Trickster isn't fun. Tyler Joseph wants to talk about tunneling here. Says, hey to all killer mains, don't tunnel. Coming from a killer main, you are throwing the game by going after the person who could have a 2 to 3 second chance perks. So I disagree with this. I think tunneling, from a cold numbers standpoint, I think tunneling is very effective. However, people are going to think you're real stinky, and your Steam profile is going to have all kinds of mean little comments on it. So, you know, do it at your own risk. But look, I said I didn't want this to be too long of a video. We're already over an hour. So that's going to do it. Wow. These were a lot of hot takes. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm not going to bother you with any more. We'll be back on Wednesday with another video. Do remember, I stream on Twitch, so I hope you heard that before you clicked off, because you know the video is about to end. Anyway, thank you so much for your input here. I hope that everybody had fun with this one. And until next time, I've been Das Food. Bye, friends.
I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with meaning. I'll do what I love till my heart stops beating. I'm feeding this demon. Got a taste, can't erase bitterness in my